The first thing you would have seen walking into the Jefferson Heights Police Department that day was a woman on her knees scrubbing a coffee stain with a brush so small it looked like something you'd use to clean a toothbrush. She wore an oversized gray jumpsuit, a faded baseball cap pulled low over her brow, and rubber gloves that had clearly been through too many bleach buckets. The place buzzed with the clatter of phones, keyboards, and boots stomping down grimy linoleum floors. No one stopped to help her. In fact, most of the cops watched with the kind of casual cruelty you'd see on a schoolyard. The man towering over her, Sergeant Frank Doyle, smirked as if this was his favorite part of the day. "You missed a spot, sweetheart," he barked, kicking the bucket so dirty water splashed across her knees. A few officers chuckled. Doyle leaned closer, voice dripping with venom. "You want to work here, you'd better learn some respect. Now get down and scrub like you mean it." The woman didn't flinch, she didn't argue. She dipped her brush into the bucket and got back to work. To anyone else, she was just another janitor trying to keep her head down. But beneath that cap, her eyes tracked everything, every crooked smirk, every whisper, every nervous glance between officers. She wasn't there to clean floors. She was there to clean house. Her name was Maya Coleman, though nobody here knew that. They didn't know she'd spent the last decade leading task forces that dismantled gangs across 3 states. They didn't know she'd been sworn in just 2 days ago as the new chief of police for the city, a city drowning in crime and corruption. And they definitely didn't know that this precinct, this very building, was ground zero for the rot. She'd been warned, if you want to see the truth, Maya, don't walk in wearing a badge. Walk in like they're better than you. That's when they'll show you who they really are. So she had. She'd traded her tailored suits for a janitor's jumpsuit, her sidearm for a mop bucket. And now here she was, kneeling in front of Doyle, a man who strutted through the station like he owned it. He was everything she'd expected, loud, smug, with the kind of gut that came from too many free meals and zero accountability. His laughter echoed off the walls as he mocked her in front of his men. "Come on, boys, look at this. Can't even clean up a coffee spill without whining." "You think this place cleans itself?" The laughter stung, but Maya didn't let it show. She kept scrubbing, slow and methodical, her face blank. What Doyle didn't see, what he would never see until it was too late, was that every insult was a breadcrumb leading her straight to him. Corruption didn't just leave paper trails. It left attitudes, body language, whispers. Maya had been a cop long enough to know that bullies like Doyle weren't just jerks. They were symptoms of something deeper, something rotten. From the floor, she watched everything. The young officer at the front desk who couldn't meet her eyes. The records clerk, pale and anxious, hiding files whenever Doyle passed. The 2 cronies by the coffee pot gossiping about another shipment at the docks and laughing like they'd gotten away with murder. Maya scrubbed and listened, invisible to them all. No one guarded their words around a janitor. By lunchtime, her knees ached so badly she thought she might never stand again. But that pain grounded her. It reminded her why she was there. She had heard enough in one morning to confirm her suspicions. This precinct wasn't just lazy, it was compromised. Doyle wasn't just a bad boss, he was a gatekeeper for the dockside crew, a gang that ran drugs, guns, and fear through the city's veins. And this station, this so-called bastion of justice, was their safe haven. That afternoon, her hunch was confirmed. Doyle's personal cell phone rang, a cheap burner, not his department-issued one. Maya was scrubbing near his desk when he grabbed it and spoke in a low voice like the whole room wasn't already his kingdom. "Yeah, what's the problem?" "We had a deal." He glanced at her but dismissed her immediately. She was nothing more than furniture. "The shipment gets a clear path at 9. My guys are running interference. No surprises." He paused, listening. "I don't care what Rico says. He gets his cut, I get my quiet night. And the witness? Make it look like an accident. Old people fall all the time." Maya froze, brush hovering over the floor. He'd just signed Maria Russo's death warrant, a 70-year-old baker who'd had the courage to testify against the dockside crew. Her stomach twisted, but her face stayed calm. She forced herself to dip the brush back in the bucket and scrub again, her hands trembling just slightly. If Doyle saw even a flicker of emotion, this entire operation would go up in flames. She needed one thing, proof, and Doyle had just handed it to her. The day crawled by. Doyle swaggered, his cronies laughed, and Maya kept scrubbing like she was nothing. But inside her mind was a storm. She thought of her father, a beat cop, who used to come home exhausted but proud, telling her, "That badge isn't a weapon, Maya. It's a promise." She thought of every victim who'd been failed by a system too busy protecting its own power. She thought of Maria Russo probably frosting cupcakes at her bakery right now, with no idea that a hit had been ordered on her life. When the precinct finally quieted, Maya wheeled her cart into a supply closet. She closed the door and leaned against it, taking a single deep breath, then another. Her knees screamed in protest, her gloves reeked of bleach, and her heart pounded so hard it felt like it might shake the walls. But she knew it was time. She reached into her jumpsuit and pulled out her badge, a polished gold shield heavier than it had ever felt. Chief of Police. She stared at it for a moment, then slipped it into her hand like a weapon. When she walked back into the bullpen, she wasn't hunched anymore. Her shoulders were straight, her steps steady. The chatter died down as she crossed the room, the wheels of her cart squeaking with every turn. Doyle barely glanced up, too busy writing his falsified report. She stopped at his desk. He didn't look up until her shadow fell across his paperwork. "What now?" he sneered. "Didn't I tell you to—" The words died in his throat when Maya slammed her badge onto his desk. It landed with a sharp metallic clack that echoed through the precinct. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Fingers froze on keyboards. Every pair of eyes in the room locked onto the badge glinting under the harsh fluorescent lights. "Sergeant Doyle," Maya said, her voice calm, but carrying an edge sharp enough to cut steel. "You are a disgrace to this department." The blood drained from his face. "What? What kind of joke is this?" "This isn't a joke." She leaned in, her eyes locking with his. "My name is Maya Coleman. As of Monday morning, I am chief of police of this city, and you, Sergeant, are under arrest." Gasps rippled through the room. Doyle's cronies exchanged panicked glances. Officer Miller, who'd been laughing at her all morning, actually dropped his coffee. The record clerk, Brenda, covered her mouth with her hand, wide-eyed. Doyle tried to rise from his chair, blustering, "You think you can waltz in here with a fake badge?" But before he could finish, the front doors swung open. Three internal affairs agents strode in, followed by four uniformed officers from outside the precinct. The lead agent, a tall man with a face like carved granite, gave Maya a small nod. "Chief, Agent Wells," she replied smoothly. "Secure his desk, his computer, and the burner phone in the top left drawer." The room erupted into chaos. Doyle's face twisted in panic as he was cuffed. "I want a lawyer," he barked. "You'll get one," Maya said coldly. "And you'd better hope they're good." She pointed at Miller and Vance. "Those two are co-conspirators. Arrest them." They turned pale as the IA officers closed in. Their swagger melted into desperation. The air buzzed with shock. Officers who'd followed Doyle blindly now stood frozen, unsure if they were next. Maya stepped closer to Doyle, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "Maria Russo is safe. She's under protective custody, and she'll testify against you, Rico, and every crooked cop in this building." That broke him. His shoulders sagged, and for the first time all day, Doyle looked small. They dragged him out past the desks he'd lorded over, his kingdom crumbling behind him. Maya turned to the rest of the officers, her gaze sweeping the room. "If you were part of this corruption, if you look the other way, your career ends tonight. Turn in your badge and your weapon." Several officers quietly unbuckled their holsters, shame etched on their faces. But not all hope was lost. Officer Evans, the rookie who tried to do the right thing earlier, stood stiffly, eyes locked on hers. "Evans," she said, voice softening, "you still believe in this badge?" He swallowed hard. "Yes, ma'am. Good. We have a city to fix. You in?" He straightened his shoulders. "I'm in." Hours later, the precinct was unrecognizable. Doyle's office was stripped bare, his cronies in custody, and the smell of cheap cigars still clung to the empty space. Maya stood by the window, looking out over a city scarred by corruption, but still alive with hope. Her knees throbbed from scrubbing floors for hours, but she didn't regret a single second. She'd knelt in humility so she could stand in justice. Her father's words echoed in her mind. The badge isn't power, it's responsibility. Tonight she'd honored that promise, but this was only step one. There were more precincts, more wolves in uniform, more innocent lives at risk. As the city lights flickered outside, Maya's jaw tightened. She wasn't here to be liked. She was here to be a reckoning. So tell me, if you saw a cop abuse their power, would you speak up? Have you ever watched a bully fall from the throne they built? Drop your thoughts below, because this fight isn't just hers, it's ours.